Hey there, I'm Neil. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host of my new podcast, Pause and Rewind. I'll be chatting to changemakers, thought leaders, and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And let's face it, we need it. Each guest has a unique story when it comes to doing their thing, and we often know who people are in the now. But how much do we really know about them? Pause and Rewind takes a moment to explore the experiences in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now. Because everyone loves an origin story. We'll dive into tales, anecdotes, and what makes our guests tick. So, are you ready to pause and rewind? Hey there, and welcome to this episode of Pause and Rewind. I am really excited about you listening in on this conversation with the wonderful Natalie Binns. Natalie and I live near Crystal Palace, and we are really passionate about our local area. We both love South London, but we also share a love of community. Natalie is going to go into a little bit more detail about what she does soon. But yeah, it was a great conversation, and I hope that you enjoy it. Natalie, hi. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to Pause and Rewind.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, Natalie, obviously we know each other from local community, but just to give anyone listening an idea of who you are a sustainable fashion consultant, a community organizer, a writer, and a designer as well. So there's quite a lot you do, and we're here today mainly to focus on the community organizing part. This Pause and Rewind is all about focusing on people that are trying to make the world a more inclusive space. But actually, I'd love to hear more about the sustainable fashion work that you do.
My actual background, my kind of career was fast fashion, like high street fashion buying. I did that for 13 years, but then obviously like working in fast fashion and then becoming aware of kind of sustainability and all the things that we should doing, I kind of started to realize, I don't know, I don't want to be in this industry anymore. And what happened was when I got made redundant in 2019, I can't do it anymore. So I went freelance, started working with purpose-driven businesses, using all of my skills that I'd learned in fashion buying, which was still super relevant. But I suppose I had insight into how to do things, how to get really good commercial outcomes, but also the right way, because I had my passion for sustainability. And I wanted to give that kind of like information to kind of purpose-driven brands and small businesses who are doing things the right way. I wanted to give them that kind of commercial boost. So taking all that big brand learning that I had and helping small brands thrive. And then from there, it just developed into more sustainable fashion talking and lecturing and things like that, because I'm just generally quite passionate about it. And I'm the sort of person that when I see something, I'll have a rant. So I got known for that. And yeah,
I
that's where
love
I
it.
am
I love it
today.
when you get known for a rant because it's like it comes from the heart, right? You
Yeah,
know when something makes you want to rant that you're passionate about it.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, well, how did you let's stay on this theme because I'm really interested. So I have tried to ditch my own issues when it comes to fast fashion, right? And I'm not saying I've
Mm.
completely got there. I'm sat in my walk-in wardrobe at the moment and I'm a lot better than I used to be. How did you curb some of your own habits?
I've got so many tips. I used to have an Instagram called the Anti-Shopper that was like teaching people how to, give up fast fashion. And I think to begin with, it starts with like looking at your own wardrobe and just going, what's in here? And like taking it all out and putting it back in. Like, do I really love this? And like remembering which things that you really like and like really speak to you. Because first, if you shop in your own wardrobe, you'll realize you've got things in there that you'd forgotten about, and just try and rewear things as much as possible. And then I just tried to buy a little bit better and a little bit less often. So it's like really softly starting, and it's kind of like step by step. So first, I kind of said like no Zara, no H&M. And then later, I started like cutting out other brands, buying a little bit more quality. And then I was like, well, actually, I could just buy this secondhand. So then I started transitioning to secondhand. But I think the first thing is slowing down, and then step by step, you kind of can start making little changes. So yeah, take a fast fashion brand out, and then start introducing a bit of secondhand, and I buy about 10 things maximum a year now. That's
10 things maximum a year. And are they
yeah.
all second hand?
So last year I did a challenge, not last year, yeah, I did a challenge, rule of five. So you only buy five brand new things, and then you can buy as many secondhand. And I think I bought five brand new and five secondhand.
That's
So
amazing. Okay, I am challenge inspired now. And we both love a charity
yeah.
shop.
Yes, I love a charity shop. You can also rent as well though, and you can swap and things like that. So yeah, you can find other ways of getting newness, but yeah, 10 things is just about right, I would say.
Oh my gosh, right. Okay, I'm feeling challenged. I'm feeling challenged. No, charity shops and mine and my husband's one of my favorite weekend things to do is we will plot out a route of charity shops. And I think
Yeah.
the most we did in one day was probably about 40. And we kind
Oh
of
my
trekked all over North
goodness.
London. And
Wow.
because actually the charity shops, for reference, everyone, Natalie and I are based around Crystal Palace, and the charity shops around here used to be a lot better than they are now. There's not
Yes, they're so good round here. That one next to Sainsbury's is amazing.
St.
St. Christopher's.
Christopher's, yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. It's I try to stay out of there actually because it's too tempting.
They're a bit pricey
Um,
now, some of them, aren't they? Some of them are
they
a
are
little bit
quite
pricier.
pricey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's talk community organising.
Mm,
Southeast London Sapphics, your baby.
it
Um,
is.
tell us what Southeast London Sapphics is. And we've had kind of like a little conversation quite a while ago about setting it up, but t tell us all about it.
Yeah, so it kind of just came out of the social that we both met at. So Crystal Palace LGBTQIA plus. They need to get a catchier name. But yeah, so it started from that, going to that social. I was the first woman to go to that social. It was 16 of us, I think, and it was all men, mostly white men,
Mm,
and me. And I just was like, I came here to meet women. So, not in a, dating way, but like, to make more queer friends. And so I just kept on trying to bring more people. And then after maybe a year and a half, I was noticing that women would come, but then they wouldn't come back because it was probably like 70% men most nights. So I was taking people's numbers and adding them to a WhatsApp group and saying like, we could get together another time, go for a pizza. And we did. We started going out a little bit. Um, and then, yeah, I think eventually I just thought, do we need a separate night? Because it kept happening. People would come to the Thursday night and then never come again. And I just thought, there are some people that just want to be in that space with other women. And then I also just felt like, I think in lesbian spaces, they tend to be more trans inclusive as well, gender non-conforming. And I just felt when you go into a space which is mainly cis men, there needs to be a space for everybody else. And what I also wanted to do was I wanted to build this community of us so that it meant that we could feel empowered to go to that space. So I didn't want to take away from it. I wanted to build on it. So it's kind of like on a different night of the week, we have our space. We can create community and become friends, and then we can feel empowered to go together to the space that has all the cis men. Because I think it's great to still be in that space, and all the boys want us to be there as well, because they enjoy that space that it's mixed. But I thought, it's nice if you've got a community, you can say, oh, who's going down on Thursday night? And know there'll be other people like you are going to be down there. So
and I,
that's what happened.
and what I mean, I am all for women only spaces, separate spaces when they're needed, right? And far from like you've just spoken about the many people, and I know we've battled this on our local Facebook groups, the joy that local Facebook groups bring, and
Yeah,
they accuse you of being exclusive and excluding people, but far from it. What you're trying to do is empower people to say, hey, there are more of us. Let's go along. Let's get together so that we can be part of other spaces, but we can do that as a collective.
yeah. And I think it has been successful because, sometimes when we go back to the Thursday night mixed social, there's a nice kind of like, oh, hey, I already know you, and like bringing new people. And then when new people come as well, they're kind of like, oh, there's another community I can
Yeah.
join. And it's just expanded as well. So the WhatsApp group's grown now. We've got about 170 people in there. I'm really conscious not to publish the WhatsApp group anywhere. So it's not the kind of, we just want quantity. It's about people who come to the meetup. We've met them, then you get the kind of invitation to join the WhatsApp group. So it's everybody knows somebody or
Yeah.
everyone's spoken to somebody. It's not like lots of strangers and lots of dormant people in the group. And then I think that keeps it kind of like quite close and small feeling, even as it is growing. And yeah, we go to lots of things together. We've been to the comedy. We booked out 2 rows at Jen Brister. We've been to the cinema to watch Bottoms. Again, we booked out about 2 rows in the cinema. It's great when we do things together like that, and you can just see like the visibility of, I'm here with 20 people that I, didn't know this time last year.
That's amazing. So not only is it great for visibility and representation, but you also get a real sense of community from it. I love how much the lesbian scene in London is thriving right now. It's
Yeah,
amazing to see.
it's amazing. And I think it's because people have just gone, do you know what? We haven't got spaces, so I'm going to make one.
Yeah.
And we're all inspiring each other to just go, actually, all you need to do is call up a pub and book a space and just make it happen. So
Make it
everyone's doing
happen.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
And what do you think of this new tagline, get lesbians out of basements? I think it's amazing. Like, because there's that bar that got went viral in East London, isn't there? And
Yeah,
they came, the owner came upstairs and was like, "Oh my gosh, there's hundreds of people out here, and now
hundreds of
they've
people.
crowdfunded to do this bar." But that tagline of get lesbian bars out of basements, just
It's
yeah,
amazing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And my friend Janie, who I've introduced you before, runs Dogs and Dykes, and they've got a thriving community, and I just think it's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah, I think it's great. Actually, one of the things I'm most proud of with Southeast Sapphics is that landing a really good venue. We get it's not exclusively ours, but we get the whole of the back of the pub and the balcony, and it's like a really nice open light space. And it's one of the things that people say when they come in is like, "Oh, this is a nice space." And I
Yeah,
think yes, we've got a decent space. I strategically picked this space so that it was a decent space. I want people to want to come. And the pub has been awesome to us as well. They're great. I just sent them over a Sapphic playlist today. So
wicked, because it's the third. Let's do a plug. It's the third Friday of every month,
it's
right?
the third Friday. So it is the third Friday of every month. It's tonight.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
Oh,
excited to
and
to launch the playlist.
which pub do you have it in that?
It's the Westo Tap on Crystal Palace Triangle.
Perfect. It's one of our locals. So yeah,
Yeah.
no, I've loved watching it be a success, and yeah, you should be proud. Like it is
Oh, thank
awesome.
you.
Um,
Let's
so
go for it.
we've talked a little bit about what you do, but what does the world look like for Natalie Binns right now?
Well, it's a very exciting world for me right now, to be quite honest, because I've just quit my job. I'm saying very dramatically saying I've quit my job, but I work for myself. So I have decided to no longer work for myself and take an in-house role, which is just exciting. I just feel completely excited. I've been a little bit burnt out by working for myself because I'm a business of one. So everything's on the table, and I'm really excited to compartmentalize work and separate life, like free time, for the first time in 5 years, which means that I might be able to lean more into, my community building, indulge some hobbies, do more things for fun because I'm not worried about, keeping my business running. So at the moment, it's like a whole new world, I feel like.
Huge decision, but really exciting.
Yeah, really exciting.
Well, let's see what happens next. But for now, I am so excited about dipping into your origin story. Are you ready to pause and rewind?
Yeah, definitely. Let's go.
Let's go for it. So, to start with, take me back. Tell me all about little Natalie.
Oh God, little Natalie was very shy, very quiet, very studious, always played by the rules. Definitely not a rule breaker, very risk averse. Asked for permission for everything. Yeah, spoke when I was spoken to. Had something to say when if you call on me and give me permission to speak, I had a lot to say. And I remember at school getting a lot of praise for public speaking and things like that. and it was almost like, you should say more. Very different to who I am now, but yeah, I think I was just a very timid child. And maybe, now that I've come out and my life's very different, I wonder, did that play a part of just feeling a bit different? But I think also it was to do with the fact that I moved around a lot as a child. I was actually born in Wales, so I'm officially Welsh. My dad was in the RAF, so we lived on an RAF camp in Wales. So there's no real connection to Wales in terms of family, but we lived there for 4 years. Then I moved to London, lived in South London for 5 years, and then moved out of what was a really multicultural area surrounded by family to Maidenhead in Berkshire, which is
Oh, wow.
very white,
Big
very
shift.
white and very, yeah. And when I first moved, I remember being like, this is really posh, everyone's posh. Um, and I remember a few years later, actually, my dad saying to me, "You're a bit posh." And I was like, "No, I'm not. Like, what? You've picked up the local accent kind of thing." Um, yeah, I really identified with, being a Londoner, even as a kid. So yeah, it was kind of, yeah, a lot of moving around and a lot of getting to grips with new people and, who am I in this space kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's part of why I was kind of quiet growing up and like kept myself to myself.
Do you think that comes into that perhaps not feeling a sense of belonging and therefore feeling a sense of comfort and confidence in who you could be?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was a lack of confidence. I also had, so when we were living in Maidenhead, I've got loads of cousins, like more than 25 cousins,
Oh, wow.
who I had, grown up with, and like all my birthdays were with my cousins and things like that. And then when we moved out to Berkshire, obviously I didn't have any of that anymore. And then when I would go back and see my cousins and go to things, I was quite different. I guess, yeah, my accent probably changed, maybe my demeanor changed. And I just felt really different to them and felt like we didn't have as much in common anymore. So that was really difficult as well, because it's kind of like, these are people I've grown up with, but now I feel a little bit like they listen to different music to me. They hang out in different places to me, and that went on until my teenage years. Really, it's only more as an adult that I probably would say that I have a better relationship with my cousins because, well, we're adults now, so none of that matters. Different. Who cares? We don't have any of those stupid pretenses anymore, and we're
Yeah.
family, so.
Of course, and th those shifts happen. I remember moving away in my teenage years, which were obviously quite a formative time. And I went and lived in Lincolnshire from Essex, lost my accent, came back, and it was like I was a different person. People didn't want to know me, even though I'd grown up there all the time, grew up around these people. So I had a similar experience, and it definitely affected how I settled in, my confidence, making friendships. It really impacted all of that for a good few years.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it does. I think those years are quite formative. Um, but I think I kind of found some refuge in schoolwork. Like I was very academic and I loved excelling at school. My parents were pretty like driven. They're both from Jamaica, and in Jamaica, schooling is taken really seriously, and it's very like almost like, I mean, I'd say having Jamaican parents, it's like, you must do your chores, you must do your homework. It's very like that. It's very rules based. And so I was brought up kind of in a way that like you could never go wrong. You should not break any rules because there will be consequences. But also I enjoyed schoolwork and I enjoyed academia and I was good at it. So I kind of found refuge in that and in books. I used to be called Matilda as a kid. Like that was my nickname because I read so many books. I always had my nose in a book. My parents used to play badminton and at the local sports centre, and I would just be found somewhere in the leisure centre just reading a book. Um, so yeah, I think I leaned into just like being really good at school. I was good at sport as well, so doing loads of sport and just like trying to be the best I could be and yeah, be a bit of a boffin really.
Yeah. Fair enough, and with that hard work, particularly kind of that work around having something to say, public speaking, being able to kind of like express yourself, even though you were quiet, we can
Mm.
definitely see that in part of Natalie now.
Yeah, I mean, I think my personality now has changed so much. And I think a, like a part of that was the formative years of like from teenage years to uni. Well, I didn't get the grades that I was expecting to get for A level. So I didn't end up going to the university that I originally thought I would be going to. And I feel like that was the changing, like that was the turning point of me realizing a few things about myself in terms of actually, I am good at academia and I do like it, but I'm really creative. And I've never indulged that side of me. And I think when I first went to uni, that was when I really started shopping in charity shops, upcycling. I was always kind of putting all the different outfits together. I used to make earrings made from guitar plectrums. I was just making, I was upcycling, I was doing all these things, and I was studying a law degree because that's what the school had kind of like said I should do because I was so academic. Um, and I think it was like somewhere along those lines, I kind of went, actually, I enjoyed the degree, but I did not want to be a lawyer. I just could not see myself studying and sleeping in the office and all of those kind of things that lawyers do. Um, I wanted to do something more creative. And so while I was at uni, I feel like I really indulged that side of me and also more socializing and all of those things. I was a cheerleader. I was vice captain of the cheerleading squad, in fact. And yeah, it just was, I came into myself and, and I realized that actually, yeah, I was more outgoing and way more creative than I ever thought I was.
That's amazing. That's
Mm.
amazing. What are some of I want to touch it about your South London experience because
Mm.
we touched on something there, but just taking it back to little Natalie, what
Mm.
are some of your earliest memories or perhaps favorite anecdotes that you've been told about yourself?
Oh my goodness. My favorite anecdote that I've been told about myself has got to be my second birthday, um, where they brought out the Pass the Parcel. It was my second birthday, actually. I always remember it as second birthday, but I feel like it might have been a bit older than that, two or three. And they brought out the Pass the Parcel, and every time it got to me, I just held on to it. And they were like, no, 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 you have to pass the parcel. And then they kept on like, pushing me to pass it on, and then it would come back to me. And then at one point, I just went, "No, I'm not having this," and ran off. Um, so that was an early, I don't know, indicator of something. Not sure
It's
what
your
that says about
birthday.
my, don't know what that says about my personality. Probably I'm still a little bit like that. But also the other one that I love is that when my dad was in the forces, so for a while he lived in Scotland and we lived in London. This is after Wales. So he was actually away a lot. And what would happen is he'd come home, or he could sometimes also he'd do night shifts as well, even when he did live nearer. He'd come home and then I'd hide and then he'd look for me. And one time he came home and he was so tired, he just went off to bed and forgot to look for me. And then, like ages later, they were like, "Where's Natalie?" Just forgotten about me. And
Where were you?
they found me like behind a curtain, fast asleep.
That was brilliant.
Yeah.
I
Oh, I
love
just
that.
love that.
Can
Yeah.
sleep anywhere.
Can't
Um,
sleep anywhere. Yeah, exactly.
love that. Love that. You talked about living in London, moving away,
Mm.
and the difference, and I guess moving back to London. London feels like home, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely feels like home.
What was that experience like of moving? You said you moved to a very white area. What was that
Mm.
experience like? Do you still remember what it was like to go from South London with all its diversity? It's the reason I love living here. It's so bright, so vibrant. Yeah, it we love it, right? South
Yeah,
Londoners, we love London. We love South London.
yeah.
Moving to somewhere that is incredibly white, that is a big shift. Would you say what was that like in terms of what was your view of that at that time? How did that make you feel?
I think it wasn't as much of the whiteness as much as it was like slightly different values.
Hmm.
Um, like I say, like Jamaican parents, Caribbean parents, very strict. School chores, you're doing the washing up, you're not allowed to eat that, like lots of rules. And a lot of my friends didn't have those kind of rules. So there was that. I always felt like I was battling against, like, oh, well, my friends are allowed to they're all going into town. And my parents were a bit like, what are you going to do in town? Hang around and do what? It's just not something that Caribbean parents they usually allow. They could just kind of like, no, like,
Mm.
do something productive with your time. So there was that. And then there also was church. So my mum and dad were both fairly religious and, wanted me to go to church. So I was brought up going to church, and that was a constant battle because I just did not want to go. I don't think I ever really wanted to go. Maybe when I was younger in London, actually, I had a best friend at church, like a school friend who I would see there, and so it would be okay, because I'd just go to Sunday school and hang out with her, it'd be fine. But then, yeah, when we moved, and there weren't really that many young people in the church, I think, that we went to, I just didn't want to go. And the older I got, teenage years especially, I used to pretend that I'd overslept, so that I didn't have to go.
And kind of where do you sit with it now?
So what's very interesting is at that time my mum and dad were very religious, and they were both had, like, my dad was in the RAF and my mum was working for a bank, and she was in a very very corporate role. I think when I got to about, I'm not sure what age I was now, 20s sometime, my mum decided to become a priest. And since she's become a priest, I think they've become more open-minded, even though they're very religious still. They've become far more open-minded and very different, I think. And so my relationship with religion is interesting because I've seen a different side to it, I suppose. And I'm still not religious, but I can talk to my mum quite a lot about religion. We have lots of conversations about it. I kind of see it from her point of view, even though I don't believe in it.
That's really beautiful. It's really beautiful to
Mm.
get to that point.
Yeah,
I had a religious upbringing for a while, and actually it wasn't always comfortable, particularly on the sexuality point of view.
yeah,
Um, but actually, one of my closest friends is religious, and we have great conversations about it. And I go to her communions when she's doing service, and we talk about her faith. Um, and yeah, I'm able to put that trauma, if you like, to one side, and my
yeah,
my personal not very nice experiences of it, because it's what she believes. And actually, so I really love that about her, and I love her faith, and we're able to converse about it, and it's wonderful. And she's open-minded too, and it's just not a thing.
yeah, yeah. No, it's great. And do you know what? I think part of why I didn't come out earlier, I didn't come out until I've only been out 4 years officially. And part of that reason was my religious upbringing,
Mm.
for sure. But actually, what's interesting, I feel like, is that my mum's becoming a priest, becoming as religious as you can be, um, showed her so many different people, different experiences, and I just think enabled her to be ready for me to come out. So when it was ready, when it was time, it was like, oh yeah, cool. She knew loads of gay people by then. So it
Amazing.
was, yeah, it was. It's weird that I didn't want to come out because of religion, but actually, religion is probably what helped. Yeah, what helped for me to be able to do it in the end.
Oh, that's wonderful. And
Yeah,
again, you don't always hear those stories, right?
yeah,
It's not always that joyful. Let's go back to uni. Okay, law degree, decided not to do it.
yeah,
Yeah, same psychology. Did not want to touch it afterwards. I was like, no, had enough of that, thanks. What
yeah,
happens next? Because until that point, it's all very linear for most of us, right? So
yeah.
what happens next for you?
So, I mean, remembering that I'd been super academic, hadn't got the grades, and then but still managed to get into a university to do law, and then now was like, hang on, I'm really creative. I want to be a fashion buyer. I was like, fashion buying is business, and creativity. So I was like, this is perfect. Um, and this is really when I kind of really found myself and started speaking up for myself, actually, because I really battled to get into the fashion industry. I started off by getting a buying job at Toys R Us, which Toys R Us HQ was in my hometown in Maidenhead. So I got a buying job there because I thought, well, maybe I could transition to buying, they do like kids wear. I could maybe transition to buying the kids wear from the toys. That could be one route in. After 2 years, that wasn't working. So I went and moved to a company, a furniture company, Dreams, actually, the bed company. So I was buying furniture. Again, I was like, maybe I could transition into buying bedding, and then that's fabric. So then maybe I could get into the fashion industry. And then I realized that actually the only way I was going to get into the fashion industry if I went back to uni. So I found a course and I went back to uni just for a year. And during that year, I basically tried to fix my CV. So all the things that people were saying, you have never worked in a fashion clothing store, you've never worked in a fashion head office. I just wanted to just tick all of that off. And you've never done a fashion course. So I did the fashion course. I worked in Jigsaw at the weekends to get that on my CV. And I also wrote to ASOS, who were tiny at the time, and said, can I come and work for you during my Easter holidays? And they said yes. So I did. So then I was just like, right, tick, tick, tick. I've done all of the three things. And I was really lucky. ASOS were expanding at the time and they actually needed staff. So my course finished and I got a job there. And I
That's
guess the rest is
amazing.
history. Yeah.
I love the creativity though, seeing that creativity of kind of like, okay, this hasn't worked. What next can I try? And your commitment to do what you wanted to do. So you did law, ended up in
Yeah.
fashion, but what were your original thoughts about what you wanted to do when we grow up?
Oh, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a hairdresser. And then later, when I kind of learned that hairdressing might not be as lucrative, um, again, being so academic and thinking about those things, I wanted to be a journalist. And I actually really loved journalism. And I used to write a lot as a child, even all through my teens and 20s, actually, I was always writing. I used to have a fashion blog. Yeah, right. I loved writing. So I thought I would be doing something in writing. I thought I'd be a journalist. And I don't know why I didn't go into that even at uni. I think school, the pressure to, you've got loads of A's at GCSE, so
Yeah.
you should do this. And then, yeah, I was pushed away from anything like, media, all of those things weren't seen as academic enough. And yeah, so maybe I could have been a journalist, but I still could be.
Still could, and you're
Yeah.
really talented writer. So, definitely still good.
Thanks.
And being able to combine that with your passion as well, you've done that. You do that. Was there a moment where something felt like a failure that maybe was pivotal to kind of where you are now?
I think the early failure of not getting the A level results, because I went from having like almost all A's and A stars at GCSE, which meant that I should have been on track for Oxford or Cambridge. Um, didn't get into Oxford or Cambridge or Warwick, which was my first choice. And then actually not getting the grades to get into the university I really wanted to go to in the end, which was Cardiff. I was like, oh my goodness, like in a way, and in my mind, I'd fallen so far,
Right.
because people had told me that I could go to Oxford or Cambridge, and then now I can't even get into my first choice. I have to go to my backup choice. But I think I learned that, because then when I went on to university and did the law degree and went, oh, actually, I don't even want to be a lawyer. I'm really creative. So it was like, it didn't matter. So, and I've always gone back to that, throughout my life and career, I always go back to that early failure and kind of go, well, remember when that happened. And then think about all the steps that you took. And actually, I don't regret going to that second choice uni because I had a brilliant time. I went to Bristol, University of West of England in Bristol. I'm still friends with the people that I met there. Some of them, I had a brilliant time. Bristol's a great city. And so, yeah, it's what made me.
It sounds like it's such a, one of the purposes of these conversations is to like explore moments where people find them sense of self in the world. And it sounds like that was a really crucial moment for you in saying, okay, yeah, I am academic, I can do all these things, and I am smart, but I'm also creative and I'm also a little
Mm.
bit kind of like, out there, and I don't have
Yeah.
to be the studious Natalie that everyone thought I was.
Yeah, definitely.
And do you feel that freedom now?
Yeah, I feel like the last 5 years or so, especially, well, I mean, another turning point in feeling like that was moving to Australia. I left London in 2012 and moved to Australia on a bit of a like, why not kind of thing. And that opened my eyes. That really changed my life, actually.
That's amazing. What was it about it that changed you so much?
I think it was like just going for something that other people might be like, really? You're going to just move to Australia? You've never been there, and all of those kind of things. It was like, just, I'm doing it on my own, not really knowing anyone out there, and just thriving. And like, I just had so many new experiences in Australia. That's when I first started dating women. Um, I started doing loads of solo traveling. I went backpacking on my own for the first time. I drove a camper van, just so many things that, yeah, I'd never
Yeah.
done before.
Um, let's talk about inclusion. You've kind of gone off, you're the founder of Southeast London Sapphics and you set up this community group. What was the moment where you first thought, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna use my experience and what I believe in to channel my voice to do something inclusive?
Um, it was, I think, so I had a late coming out story. I came out when I was 38. Yeah, partly because of the religious thing, I think, but also because it took me a really long time to acknowledge that I was queer. So it was kind of, yeah, it was there in the back of my mind. I didn't understand what bi was, and I think that if I'd have known a bit more about what being bi meant, that it didn't mean 50% of one and 50% of another, then that would have helped. If queer, I'd known the umbrella term of queer, that would have helped as well, I think, because I think when I realized I'm not straight. I'm not straight. When I realized that I'm not straight, I was like, oh, okay. And then it was like a slow unraveling of, what that actually meant. Um, and so when I first came out officially, I say, because I'd started dating women, some friends knew, some people didn't, but my parents didn't know. So for me, the pivotal thing was telling my parents, because that was like the kind of like, I'm authentic now. Um, I started going to kind of community things, different events, um, and I just felt like it's so hard to go to all these things on your own. I was going to so many things on my own. And people are lovely and welcoming. There's some brilliant communities like London International Lesbians I went to. But at that time as well, I wasn't identifying as a lesbian. I was identifying as bisexual. So I also felt like confronted by the fact that it was called lesbians, and like there was just so much going on in my mind. And I think going to the local socials and finding people locally felt less intimidating than these kind of like places on the scene. And that's where I was like, this is actually really useful for people, especially people like me who were, had come out late. And I met loads and loads of people like that in at the local social. And I just realized that there needs to be spaces that are super welcoming, that you can go on your own, but it's not like a night out. You don't have to feel like, you have to dress a certain way, like it's just a casual pub.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's not too like in the scene. There's nothing worse than like I'd go to things for free and I'd go to the pre-drinks and then try and talk to a few people, but like you don't really get to know anybody, and then you're just like on the dance floor, and then at some point you're like on the dance floor on your own. Like it's
Yeah.
it's
It's awkward, isn't it?
it's yeah, it's like I wanted to create that space where you can just meet people like down the road from your house,
Yeah.
and that community. And I feel like that's kind of what we have now, because it was really important to me, the WhatsApp community, and keeping that really kind of like close knit as you can in a big WhatsApp community. And facilitating others to kind of say, oh, I want to do this. Does anyone want to come with me? Because I don't host loads of things. I host the one social a month. And then if I'm going to something, I might decide, oh, I'm happy to sort of host people. So I would say, like, if I'm going to Butch Please, I'll say I'll book a table for all of us if people want to come. And so I'll do a bit of hosting then. But generally, it's kind of organic. I let people just be like, oh, is anyone interested in comedy? And I'm like, I'll start a comedy sub chat and you guys go ahead and, go to comedy if you want to go to comedy. And like, so there's all these like subgroups that other people are just finding connection and doing things they love. Um,
I love that you're
yeah.
facilitating that though. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work on top of lifing as it is, but you obviously believe in it and are really proud of it.
I get such joy from it, honestly. When I was making the decision about whether or not I should continue working for myself, and I was really like deep diving into what brings you joy, what do you love, I realized that actually running SE Sapphics was like the biggest thing providing joy in my life currently, which is why I knew I needed to change something because, I do want to enjoy my work. But I'd stopped enjoying running a business. And I just thought, yeah, the kind of like creating community and all of that was bringing me so much joy. And I thought, well, also going in house means that, like I say, like some of my free time, I get my headspace back, I
Yeah,
think. So
yeah,
then I could actually put more into, community stuff.
that's it. You get your evenings off, so you can go to some more
Yeah.
social things
Yeah. Yeah.
and let other
Exactly.
people do the hosting, so you can kick back as well.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that with launching the House of Happiness, which is kind of my
Mm,
sober clubbing event that I run with Janie and Emma, like I
yeah.
definitely like the community and the friendships that I built off the back of it are definitely the biggest sense of joy when you see the friendships blossoming on and off the dance floor.
Yeah.
It just like makes it all worth it. So I'm
Yeah.
totally with you on that. Um, Talk to me about a lesson or a person that's shaped you the most along the way.
Um, I think my life lesson is it's just been about pivots. And I think actually my mum has been probably my biggest kind of person in my life that's shown me that pivots can happen and be really positive, going from a really corporate career to, becoming a priest. But also she started running marathons at 49. And a couple of weeks ago, I went to support her run her 22nd marathon
Oh
at
my gosh.
65. Yeah. She came first in her age group in the Brighton Marathon, running it in 4 hours. So that's remarkable
Oh
to me.
wow.
So, that like that's just so much for me. I'm like, yeah, always my mum. I'm like, what are you going to do this year? Like, she just really just goes for it and works at whatever she does. And even actually, I mean, both my parents, but like growing up, they came from Jamaica and made their life here, bought a house, did all of those things. Had to live in Wales, which is really isolated from everybody that they knew. Um, and my mum was, yeah, she was always studying at night so she could go further up in her career when she was in the bank. She started out working on the desk at the bank and then was managerial level, money laundering, all these kind of like, very corporate, working in the city. So yeah, all of those things. And my dad as well, he left the RAF and then he had a restaurant for a while. And it's I think, yeah, my close family, we're all kind of pivoters and grafters actually. And I sometimes, like when I was deciding to, not work for myself, I thought, this is what I do, actually. This is what I do. I just pivot.
I love that, but it's such a
um,
skill and it's such a skill and it
yeah.
takes so much more than people probably realize, in terms of resilience and kind of like self-confidence and belief in yourself that actually it's going to be all
Yeah.
right, give me the next challenge.
Yeah. And sometimes like some people could work at the same job for like 10, 15 years, which is also great, and like work
Yeah.
their way up and all of those kind of things. And like there've been times where I've been like, why didn't I just stay at ASOS? Because I would be a director by now. But then now I've realized that's just not what I
No.
do. It's just not. I kind of like I do something for a bit and then I kind of like I need to challenge myself. I need
Mm.
to switch it up. And I guess, yeah, I definitely get that from my parents.
Yeah, what a lot of the conversations that I'm having, and actually my own experience, is that life just isn't as linear as people think it is, and that is
Yeah,
okay. That is
yeah,
okay. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Does happiness and success look and feel like you thought it would?
Definitely not. Um, especially especially when I was running my business. Um, even when it was, doing brilliantly and I was like really loving it, I realized that money was had changed. Like what I thought about money had changed. The amount of money that I needed has drastically changed over the years. Um, I thought I needed so much money. I thought I needed a two-bed flat at least, and I've got a one-bed flat, and I actually now think I would live in this flat forever.
Yeah.
I don't need any more space. It's perfect for me. Whereas I used to think about like, oh, you've always got to have the best of everything. Now I'm like, I love where I live. I love my local community. Why would I move? I
Um,
just feel like, yeah, just more humble about things.
yeah. Oh, I love that. And I'm totally with you on this area. But I think that feeling content is feeling content is underrated.
Yeah. And also like feeling like you're living your purpose. I think
Mm,
that's become a lot more important to me than accolades, money, all of those kind of things. I've not really been on a proper holiday since 2019. So that was a sacrifice. I never thought I could be that person because before that I was earning really well and I was traveling loads with work and I was traveling loads outside of work as well. Um, I didn't think I could be that person that doesn't, go abroad. But for years I didn't go abroad, and I became comfortable with a different, other things were feeding me,
yeah.
spending time with family was feeding me, or, even just we did a little holiday to Cornwall last year with my family, my sister, my two nieces, my sister's partner, and it was just so lovely because we were all together. And
Yeah.
I just thought yeah, like you say, like look, some of those small moments are so underrated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Looking back so far, what are you most proud of?
Oh my goodness. It's so hard to pinpoint these things, but I would say I think moving to Sydney is probably my proudest moment because that's just such a huge thing to do. And when I think about how I pushed through and also got to stay there because I got there, I hated my job from day one. I quit it after 6 months, but I just really wanted to stay in Sydney. So I spent 6 months like grafting to find a job, while also doing all kinds of weird jobs to make money.
Love that.
Yeah, and I got a job with sponsorship 1 month before I was due to leave the country. Like my visa was going to run out.
And how long did you
So
stay for?
4 years in total. I
Wow.
stayed for 4 years and then I left. But when I left, I kept the same job. So I did it from London and sort of like went back and forwards. And that's where my freelance kind of like, oh, freelance is kind of fun. That's where that kind of popped in. But yeah, they loved what I was doing and they were like, why can't, what you could just try and do it for London. So I did for a bit and then, yeah, eventually had to give in to life in London.
Pivot and grafting. Pivot and
Yeah.
grafting. Love
Yeah.
that. The House of Happiness is London's ultimate sober clubbing extravaganza. We're led and delivered but created for all, whether teetotal, sober curious, or just taking a booze snooze. We love a day rave, and on a Saturday afternoon you can expect banging house tunes, DJs on decks, dancers on podiums, and a fully stocked alcohol-free bar. Flamboyant, bold, with a glitter station to boot. We're all about safe, inclusive fun, and we even have a pre-meet so that you can make new sober buddies before you hit the dance floor. Grab your tickets from Instagram now at House of Happiness Official, and we'll see you on the dance floor. I've got some quickfire questions for you.
Hmm.
Are we good?
Yeah.
So, what album, movie, or book has had a lasting impact on you?
Well, I was thinking about this, and there's a book I'm reading at the moment, and I'm not even halfway through. But the last 2 weeks have been full of loads of change for me, and I think subconsciously this book has been part of it. It's called "Stop Living on Autopilot." It's by Antonio Neves, and it tells the story of a man who realized one day that it asks you these amazing questions. Like, if you were your employer, would you rehire yourself based on the last 30 days of your work? If you were your partner and would you recommit to your relationship based on the last 30 days of your relationship? And if your answer is no, then what are you doing,
Oh,
basically?
wow.
Yeah, like like why not? And like, and it's when I'm being honest with myself, I'm kind of like, oh, actually, yeah, no, oh yeah, no, I'm not showing up, and yeah, all of those things. So I think subconsciously it was making me confront some home truths about myself, and yeah, it's been life changing really in the last couple of weeks because I've started exercising. I've been doing couch to 5K. I've been getting up earlier. I got up this morning and did a Pilates class at 7:30.
Amazing. And you're only halfway
Yeah,
through.
and I'm only halfway through the book.
Bloody hell, what
Exactly.
are you going to be like when it finishes? I'm going to drop that book in the show notes for people.
Yeah.
You'll be running marathons with your mum next.
Well, honestly,
I love it.
I'm starting to get tempted. No.
Do it. Honestly, it's life changing. What's the saying you live by and one that you'd like to put in the bin?
So one that I live by is "this too shall pass."
Okay,
And in the
beautiful.
hardest moments, I try and remember it. I try and remember that, you've always got through the worst times. Um, in terms of things I would put in the bin, there's no one phrase, but anything that's to do with like hustle or, like keep working until it breaks you, that kind of
Uh,
vibe, like anything like that, I just think rest is really valuable.
yeah,
And so any kind of, I'm not into that whole kind of like hustle life, I've worked 90 hours this week type life.
yeah,
When they say like, CEOs weren't made and on your couch and all of that stuff, I'm like, it's fine to sit on your couch and it's good. Like rest is
yeah.
underrated. So anything that's to
Absolutely.
do with hustle,
I love
yeah.
that. It's that bullshit resilience rhetoric as well, right? And
Yeah,
those people
yeah.
that say you've got the same amount of hours in the day as Beyonce. Yeah,
Yes,
for
that's
money.
exactly it. That's exactly
Yeah.
it.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. Mine is I hate the phrase "it is what it is," and I did loads of work with my coach to get rid of that phrase out of my vocabulary.
Oh, really?
Not a
Yeah,
fan,
that's a
not a
good
fan.
one. Yeah.
What has been the best adventure of your life so far? And I have a feeling it might be Sydney, but
Well, yeah, living abroad. I also lived abroad briefly in Paris when I was 22 after I'd finished uni, and I couldn't get a job, well, in fashion. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to get, well, couldn't get any job. And a friend of my parents, their au pair, handed a notice in, like really short notice. And so it was like, would Natalie like to go over and look after 4 kids in Paris? And I went, yeah, sure. So,
I love-
so I just left like 2 weeks later, and yeah, I was an au pair for 3 months.
did you enjoy it?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah. I mean, it was really hard. The kids were lovely, lovely, and also, I mean, the smallest one was a bit. I was going to say a bit of a nightmare, but that's so hard to say. Like, she wasn't a nightmare, but she,
She won't be listening.
yeah. Well, I mean, she must be like 25 now. This is a really long time ago. But yeah, no, she was a bit of a nightmare, and she used to speak in rapid French and shout at me, and refused to go to school. That was
Okay.
the yeah, that was the problem. And but the older boys were great, and the older girl was great as well. So it was an experience. But I saw all of Paris because I had like a travel card thing as part of my pay. You don't get much money, but you get like a travel card, and you obviously get like, roof over your head and everything. So I would take them to school, and then I would go into Paris and go to all the museums and everything, and then I'd come and pick them up from school. It was such an easy job. It was only 2 days a week as well.
Paris is gorgeous as well. Such a
Yeah.
cool place. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What three words would you use to describe your origin story?
Late blooming lesbian.
Fucking hell. You boom, late blooming late blooming lesbian. Amazing. Thank you
Sums
so
it up.
much. That is amazing. Honestly, that was so quick off the tongue. I love it.
Yeah.
Are you happy to fast forward a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're not fast forwarding too much. What exciting things do you have coming up?
Well, I think the exciting thing is that I don't know what's coming up,
That
given
is
my
exciting.
current employment status.
Fun employment you used earlier.
Yeah, fun employed. I've got a lot of winding down of like my business to do, which is, yeah, it's going to be nice. I'm actually connecting with some of my old clients to just have a chat and things. I'm in my just have a chat era, lots of coffees booked in and things like that. Yeah, I mean, doing this podcast has been amazing, but I've written an article for Queer AF newsletter that goes out this weekend. That was brilliant. Working with them was fantastic. They're
Jamie's wonderful, isn't he?
so good. Like the
Yeah.
mentorship that you get to help you write that piece is just so wonderful. Like I felt really proud of the piece that I wrote in the end. And so that's ignited my old kind of like journalistic passions. And so I want to do more writing. Um, so yeah, lots on the cards and
Freedom to
more
explore.
sapphic things.
More
Yeah,
sapphic
yeah,
things.
yeah,
More
more
sapphic
sapphic
things. Well,
things.
I look
Yeah,
forward to seeing loads more writing. I recently started a Substack. And actually kind of I really enjoy writing, but
yeah.
I hadn't really written for a while. And then off the back of International
Mm.
Women's Day, I wrote an article about where are all the men when it comes to like kind of talks about gender
Oh yeah, I
equality.
saw
And
that.
I thought,
Yeah,
where can I get this article out? And I thought, I know, fuck it, I'll start my own Substack.
yeah.
Maybe I'll see you on Substack.
I have actually considered a Substack. It's yeah. Maybe that's what I'll be doing.
Okay, excited to read more. What
Yeah.
brings you joy?
Oh, my nieces. Spending time with my nieces and being an auntie is just like the most rewarding thing. I do everything I can to spend as much time with them as possible. And in fact, I would say that they're probably a little bit of the reason why I continued working for myself as long as I did, because I was just like, but the freedom, the flexibility, being able to spend, Thursday, one of my nieces goes to my parents. So I know that I can just like, oh, I'm just going to go to my parents on a Thursday so I can spend time with her.
Oh,
I love being able to do that or finish early on a Friday and pick up the other niece from school. So I just get so much joy from knowing them, getting
what are
to
their
know
names?
them. Mila and Kaya.
Hi, Mila and Kaya.
Yeah.
Oh, they sound adorable.
Yeah, they're lovely.
What takeaways do you have for anyone listening wanting to do something to put inclusion out there in the world? You've gone off and created this event, created
Mm.
this community because there wasn't one. What advice do you have for someone who might be thinking about doing the same?
I'd say just go for it and don't overthink it. Just start small and start local. I kind of said, I saw that the Thursday social was in a pub that was owned by the Portobello Group. So I thought, well, if I go to another Portobello pub, they'll probably give me a space because they understand that these socials attract a decent sized crowd. So be a bit strategic, can you use your network? But yeah, just go for it really. And
Love that.
you never know what it might become. And it also might, if it doesn't work or it just doesn't really matter, does it?
You can pivot. You can pivot.
You can pivot, yeah.
Finally, do you have any words of wisdom, encouragement, or advice for anyone out there to help them get to wherever they're going?
Just it's just about trying new things and being ready to, challenge yourself. I don't like that thing, do one thing every day that scares you, because I think we don't need to be living in fear.
Life's
But
scary enough right now.
yeah, exactly. But I do think it like we should also, challenge ourselves sometimes. So, you know, don't be afraid to take a risk, I guess, because yeah, I started out life very risk averse. And the more I've taken risks, the more I've grown. So yeah, do take some risks.
Natalie, thank you so much for joining me and pressing pause and rewind. And hopefully, I will see you locally very soon.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for joining me on Pause and Rewind. What a wonderful conversation. Natalie's love of community really, really shines through, and the work that she has done with SE Sapphics has provided a safe space for many lesbians to come together, and an inclusive space as well, where they can empower each other to go into other spaces, and really kind of like showcases the importance of visibility and community. And it's just wonderful to see. And yeah, as Natalie and I spoke about, seeing the lesbian scene thrive in London is absolutely wonderful. It is brilliant to hear someone else talk about the fact that life is not linear. And I love Natalie's ethos around pivot and graft. Pivot and graft is so, so important, because life throws so many different things at you. And rather than being beaten down, you can actually just pivot. Natalie talked a little bit about how her failure to get her initial grades that she wanted to get into Oxford or Cambridge and Warwick really kind of like helped reveal her sense of self, moving away from the Natalie that was studious and very academic through to one that was also those things, but as well being really creative and forging a career in that around sustainable fashion. And what a creative person Natalie is. And it was an absolute pleasure to speak to her. And yeah, Natalie, I cannot wait to see you soon. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and share with anyone else. Yeah, community. It's all about community, and I hope that Pause and Rewind builds a community of people that absolutely love storytelling and community as much as I do. So cheers everyone, thanks for listening.